Hi everyone, Ashley here. Welcome back to Dress to Jet. Today I'm going to show you my favorite vintage or vintage inspired coats. Even though I live in California, we do get some cold days, and this time of year I actually get to wear some of my outerwear, even though I have way too much for the climate that I live in. But let's get into my favorites. So my first favorite winter coat, and this is the lightest coat that I'll be showing you, is a dress trench. So it's from DRA. This was bought at Anthropologie on a deep discount, and it was bought as a gift. So I could not afford this. I wouldn't have bought it. I don't even go into Anthropologie. It was just a complete fluke, and I fell in love with the jacket. So it is quite thin, but it is a trench coat. But it is cut to a dress. So it has kind of all the pleats for a dress. You can just kind of see there, it pleats out for a dress. So you wouldn't really wear these with pants, you would only wear it with a dress. So it complements wearing a dress, and that's what I love about it. So it complements all of my my vintage dresses really well, and it just looks so period when you're wearing it with something like that. So this is the lightest of kind of these coats, but it's very vintage inspired. So now we're getting into the more traditional winter coats. This is by Perico Ispin. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. This was a gift for my mother-in-law for one Christmas, and it has a really cute lining. It's all pink. It has a bunch of stuff written in like French in the inside. And it's just basically this checkered pattern. It has like a beautiful collar and gathering here. And it also has a bow on the back there. So it's not comfortable to sit in and drive in because this is quite bothersome, but it is like a super cute jacket, and I love the little kind of gathering on the shoulders. That's a dead like giveaway for me. Like if I see a jacket with this kind of gathering, kind of a tiny poof sleeve there, I love it. So yeah, this is one of my other coat that I love. So this coat could also be extremely modern. It's from Modern Store, but it does look really vintage if you pair it with the right outfit. So this is a Zara basic coat. I got it at Goodwill. Yeah, and it's seen some better days on the inside. The lining's not in great condition, but it's super warm. It is wool, but I bought it secondhand, obviously. Don't buy wool new. And yeah, so just the way that it's cut, it looks vintage. And again, it kind of has that nice kind of gathered style of the shoulder. So of course I like that. And it's kind of basic in the cut. It is long, it goes past my knees, but it goes great with all of my vintage outfits, and it really complements it well. So this is a good example of a modern coat you find at Goodwill that can be made vintage. My next vintage coat is one that's very recently acquired by me, which you can see in my clothing swap video. I'll link it above and below. And it's this one, the one that Lizzie gave me, that was her grandmother's. So this is a true vintage. This is Correct Fashions. And yeah, it's, as I said in the video before, it has a lot of really cool features. There's no buttons on the bottom, just one on top. It has really cool, like, kind of shoulder features there. But my favorite is that you would tie this when you wear it, tie it in the bow. I think that really would set it off. So it has a really cute collar, and yeah, and it's kind of cropped and wide at the bottom, so it's a really nice vintage style. So this next coat is probably the most beautiful coat that I own. It's really gorgeous, and it's made by a vintage inspired brand. So this is from Miss Candy Floss. Miss Candy Floss makes all vintage inspired clothing. They're not cheap, but I do have a dress and this coat, so but they're really well made, and they are worth it for me. When I see the few pieces that I'm like, I have to have those, I do pay the price for them, but they're not cheap. So yeah, so it's this kind of, it's this blue jacket. It has a kind of a rollover, it's not a hood, but it's like a big wide back collar. It has a deep V, and it has these double buttons all the way down. It does have a belt that goes around, so you can cinch it in. And it has some beautiful kind of gathering in the back too. So like that. It's heavy, it's gorgeous. I don't wear it as much as I would like to, but I definitely pulled it out of my closet and was like, why don't I wear this enough? Like, I really love it, and it's gorgeous, and it's definitely the most vintage looking jacket that I have. Even some of my vintage jackets, this looks more vintage than them. So I really love it. I love the cut. It has some nice thick sleeves and cuffs. So yeah, this is by Miss Candy Floss. It's a really good brand. You should check them out, and I'll link them below. So the last coat I'm going to share with you, I think is a modern brand, but definitely has a vintage feel, which you're going to get a lot of, you know, modern things that, you know, are reminiscent of vintage style. So this is from the brand Pink Martini. I don't know anything about them, but when I saw this jacket in Goodwill, I was like, oh, I thought it was like, it's a vintage jacket, or at least vintage style, because I don't really care if it's true vintage. I like the style, so it doesn't really matter to me if it's truly vintage. But yeah, so I saw this and I loved the style. I love the pattern, it's so unique. I love how it lines this kind of like coppery color, lines the collar there, has this big nice buttons, and the line, the color cords all the way down to the bottom. It has this really intricate and cool lining on the inside, which is very contrasting to the outside pattern. So that was cool. Yeah, and it's in really good condition. I love the ribbing on the sleeves, the same around the collar, and has this big, very kind of 50s style buttons, 50s and 60s style buttons on them. So yeah, this was a really good buy at Goodwill. So those are all my favorite vintage or vintage inspired coats. I think my collection's a good mix of just modern coats that are cut in a way that can be complementary to a vintage outfit and look vintage when they're paired with other things, true vintage, and then vintage reproductions. Those are all, you know, vintage clothing is a spectrum of even like perception, like that Zara, that very modern Zara jacket or coat can be made vintage looking with other outfits very, very easily, but it's something that you could buy at the mall. So I think my collection's a good mix of those kind of categories of vintage clothing. So, you know, it's a big world, and you don't have to like pay hundreds of dollars for a vintage piece that's from the 60s or the 50s or the 40s or whatever decades you like. So that's a good tip for if you're getting into vintage clothing. So yeah, so that's all I have today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.